Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News on India's Voice to the World. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with US President Joe Biden, reiterates the path of dialogue and diplomacy for solution to the Ukraine conflict. Both stress on ensuring safety of Hindus in Bangladesh. Ukraine mounts response as it faces acute electricity and water supply outages after most massive Russian attack. US, UK, NATO termed the attack as irresponsible and potentially dangerous. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor COVID-19 content, regrets demoting news story about Biden's son after a false alarm by FBI in the lead up to 2020 polls. Doubts rise over the debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump over the subject of muted mics. Trump also questions the neutrality of broadcaster ABC News. And in India, incessant heavy rains wreak havoc in Gujarat. All schools closed, hundreds relocated to safer areas as forecast of heavy rains in the next few days adds to the misery. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a telephone call from US President Joe Biden on Monday. Prime Minister conveyed his appreciation for President Biden's deep commitment for the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership, which is based on shared values of democracy, rule of law and strong people-to-people ties. The leaders reviewed the significant progress in bilateral relations and highlighted that India-US partnership is aimed at benefiting the people of both the countries as well as the entire humanity. The two leaders had a detailed exchange of views on a number of regional and global issues. While discussing the situation in Ukraine, Prime Minister briefed President Biden on his recent visit to Ukraine. He reiterated India's consistent position in favor of dialogue and diplomacy and expressed full support for early return of peace and stability. The two leaders expressed their shared concern over the situation in Bangladesh. They emphasized restoration of law and order and ensuring safety and security of the minorities, particularly the Hindus in Bangladesh. Both the leaders agreed to remain in touch. Prime Minister Modi and President Biden also emphasized on their continued commitment to work together, including through regional groups like the Quad, to contribute to peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Our correspondent Nick Harper tells us more.
Yeah, interesting that the Quad came up, but perhaps not surprising. It has been very much front and centre of President Biden's foreign policy in the last 3.5 years since he came into office. Really that determination to strengthen the Quad relationship with India, Japan and Australia, the four countries really working behind the scenes and together to try and counter the influence of China in the Indo-Pacific. It's something that undoubtedly the US and India are both concerned about. It's not clear whether they made any new headway or any new commitments, as it was just two of the four countries taking part in this phone call, but the very fact that it was mentioned by the White House in the readout afterwards, listing the key points that they discussed, shows how important it is for President Biden. I think it's worth bearing in mind as well that we know President Biden is now an outgoing president. He's not seeking re-election. But here he is having this phone call at an important time, about 10 weeks before the election, making it clear that the Democrats, and therefore by extension the Democratic Party candidate Kamala Harris, is committed to that relationship with India, with that defence ties, the trade ties, but both countries looking out at global conflicts and seeing what they can do, making it clear that he is outgoing. But if Kamala Harris were to come into office, there is that idea of continuation within the Democratic Party to remaining in a strong position of maintaining those strong relationships and ties with India.
At least 6 people have been killed after Russia launched a massive attack across Ukraine. Russia hammered locations in Ukraine's east and west, putting a huge strain on Ukraine's energy grid. The attack comes after Ukraine celebrated independence from the Soviet Union on Saturday and almost 3 weeks after Ukraine started its incursion of Russia's Kursk region. Dasha Chernysheва gets us more from Moscow.
Russia says it launched a massive group strike against critical power infrastructure of Ukrainian defense industry. The MOD said long-range precision air and sea-based weapons hit Ukraine's power grid, compressor stations supporting operations of the Ukrainian gas transportation system in several regions of the country. Moreover, it says it hit depots of aircraft armaments supplied to Kyiv from the west at airfields in the Kyiv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Meanwhile, Ukraine hit Russia with at least 20 drones overnight. A high-rise residential building in the city of Saratov was hit. Local authorities reported 4 injured. The Kremlin on Monday said that there would be a response from Russia to Ukraine's incursion into Russia's western Kursk region. Presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that, quote, such hostile actions cannot remain without an appropriate response. He said that the response would not be a separate decision. The Kremlin also said that the idea of ceasefire talks with Kyiv is no longer relevant. He dismissed media reports that there had been some kind of ceasefire talks between Moscow and Kyiv. In Russia's Belgorod region, the authorities announced the closure of another 3 border villages for the residents because of difficult operative situation. Dasha Chernysheва in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine decided to further strengthen the direction of the eastern strategic hub of Pokrovsk that has seen an intensified Russian military push recently. He said on Monday that he was briefed by his army chief on the situation in the area.
Today, I began the day with a separate, lengthy conversation with the Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi. We discussed in detail the repulsion of the missile strike, our response to Russia, which we are preparing, the use of F-16s and the operations in the Kursk region. We continue our actions in designated areas exactly as Ukraine needs. Over the day, we have gained more control and there has been another replenishment of the exchange fund.
NATO strongly condemned what it called Russia's ongoing attacks against Ukraine after Poland said a drone likely entered its airspace during a Russian attack on Ukraine early on Monday. NATO spokesperson Farah Daklala said that Russian drone fragments and missiles have been found on Allied territory on several occasions and added that these acts are irresponsible and potentially dangerous. US President Joe Biden denounced an outrageous Russian assault on Ukraine's power grid on Monday, vowing that Moscow would never succeed in its ongoing war and pledged continued support to Kyiv. Biden's comments followed an earlier condemnation by White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, which denounced efforts to plunge the Ukrainian people into darkness as the fall sets upon us. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy condemned on Monday the latest Russian attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and said that he was deeply saddened by the death of a Reuters employee in strikes in eastern Ukraine. Iran has leveled another threat as tensions mount in the Middle East, with its foreign ministry spokesperson saying Tehran's response to Israel will be definite, calculated and accurate in the wake of the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh earlier this month. It comes as the key mediators are desperately trying to salvage a ceasefire deal to end the fighting in Gaza, seen as the only way to potentially avert a wider regional war. Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv.
Concerns over a wider escalation continue to mount right across the Middle East, with red alert sirens ringing out in these largely evacuated northern communities of Israel on Monday, with Israeli warplanes also conducting strikes in southern Lebanon, saying that they've been hitting Hezbollah weapons storage facilities and other infrastructure. Well, it comes as Iran continues to level threats at Israel over the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. He was the head of Hamas's Politburo, with that killing blamed on Israel. Now, Iran's foreign ministry has come out to say that the response will be definite and calculated, adding that Iran doesn't seek to increase tensions. However, it is not afraid of it. Now, this comes as low-level negotiations are continuing to try and get a ceasefire and hostage release deal over the line, but the one main sticking point does remain, and that is the control over the Philadelphia corridor. This is this very narrow strip of land that separates Egypt and Gaza, and one that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that he will not remove troops from, saying that he believes that this could potentially then see weapons smuggling from Egypt into Gaza, while Hamas has been saying that it will not agree to anything but a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. So as we go to air, it does appear as though talks are stalling, with really the only optimism being seen from the United States. Reporting from Tel Aviv, I'm Sarah Coates for DD India.
All right, getting your updates from Pakistan, where the death toll in multiple cases of terror attacks reported in the Balochistan province crossed 70. As per the latest reports, at least 73 people were killed when terrorists attacked police stations, railway lines and highways. Pakistan's military said 14 soldiers and police and 21 terrorists were killed in retaliatory operations. Rail traffic in Quetta was suspended on Monday following blasts on a rail bridge in the town of Bolan, linking the provincial capital to the rest of Pakistan, as well as on a rail link to neighbouring Iran. In Bangladesh, a Dhaka court on Monday sent 388 Ansar personnel to jail in 4 cases for laying siege and ransacking the secretariat and launching an attack on students. According to police, a total of 437 named and 11,100 unnamed people were made accused in 4 cases. Earlier on Sunday night, more than 40 people were injured when the clashes broke out between students and protesting Ansar personnel. Moreover, at least 6 army personnel were injured and one of them was in critical condition, according to Inter-Services Public Relations Office's press release issued on Monday. At around 10 p.m. on Sunday, Bangladesh Army personnel had went to the spot and brought the situation under control. Meta founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has made a stinging revelation about US President Joe Biden that might heavily impact the ongoing presidential campaign in the US. The Meta CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has made these revelations in a letter written to House Judiciary Committee of the United States. In his letter, the Meta founder said that in 2021, Biden administration officials pressured him to censor some COVID-19 content and even jokes and satires related to it. In another revelation, Zuckerberg also charged the FBI officials of warning him to suppress content related to corruption charges related to the then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family. Zuckerberg said that FBI had warned him, the information being part of Russian disinformation campaign, which turned out to be otherwise. Lastly, in his letter, Mark Zuckerberg said that this year he will not make any contribution for creating electoral infrastructure for facilitating elections in the US. People feel that my contributions help any particular party, he said. A much-anticipated U.S. presidential debate next month between Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican nominee and former U.S. President Donald Trump was thrown into question over the subject of muted mics as a Republican threatened to pull out. Trump further raised doubts when he raised questions on neutrality of the broadcaster, the ABC News. Trump and Harris campaigns were locked in disagreement on Monday over whether each candidate's microphone would be muted when the other one speaks, as was the case during Trump's debate in June with President Joe Biden. But Harris is pushing for a return of the norm of keeping microphones on. The Trump camp maintains that the debate should occur under the already agreed conditions. A quick break ahead. You're watching DD India News, but after the break, Japan says Chinese military's airspace violation is utterly unacceptable. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres issues a fervent appeal to save the seas, flags the danger of rising ocean temperatures from Pacific Islands Forum in Tonga. Welcome back. After the break, you're watching DD India News Hour. Japan has termed the violation of its airspace by a Chinese military aircraft as utterly unacceptable. The reaction comes a day after Japan scrambled jets and summoned a Chinese embassy official in Tokyo in protest. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Hoshimasa Hayashi said that the airspace breach was not only a serious violation of Japan's sovereignty, but also threatened the country's security. The government continues to monitor increasing Chinese military activity near Japan and will be fully prepared for any airspace violation.
This is the first time we have confirmed and publicly announced a breach of our airspace by a Chinese military aircraft since we began taking measures against acts violating our airspace. Such airspace breach by Chinese military aircraft is not only a serious violation of Japan's sovereignty, but it also threatens our security, which is utterly unacceptable.
All right, Chris Gilbert joins us from Tokyo for more on this. Chris, now this airspace violation happened on Monday morning. Help us understand how grave is this alleged airspace violation by China?
Well, I've been on the phone to a couple of political scientists and international relations experts here in Tokyo, asking them exactly the same question. And look, it's rare. It's the first time that this has happened by a Chinese military plane. But it's not the first time that this has really happened. In 2012, a Chinese maritime plane entered the Senkaku Island area, as did a drone in 2017. That's a different area, much further, away from Japan, closer to Taiwan, but disputed between the two countries. And look, the politicians are, having a field day with this. We just heard Chief Cabinet Secretary Hayashi saying that it's totally unacceptable. It's a breach of sovereignty. It's not unusual for Japanese politicians to try and make the most of these opportunities, as one political expert told me this morning, to keep the embers burning. For their political ends, because China is Japan's #1 security challenger in the region, according to Japan's own national security policy. It is, however, Japan's closest trading partner, and those two countries have been wedded by trade, and that really trumps any issues like this. The Defense Ministry is also playing this down, saying that Japan cannot yet overreact until it has determined whether this is intentional or not. And it does seem, according to the Defense Ministry at least, that the aircraft has just grazed for a couple of minutes Japanese territory, and it may simply have drifted off course. But as I say, Chief Cabinet Secretary Hayashi, the Defense Minister, are certainly saying that this is unacceptable and have urged China to assure them that this will not happen again.
All right. Now, this is for the first time you tell us that a Chinese military aircraft had breached Japan's airspace. Chris, do we know anything more about China's response, China's reaction on the allegations put forth by Japan?
There has been no immediate response at the moment. I believe China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs just held their morning press briefing, and at the moment the latest news line really is this reaction from Japan, with the strong comments coming from Chief Cabinet Secretary Hayashi at his morning presser here in Tokyo, that this is totally unacceptable and is a breach of sovereignty. And as I say, the Defense Ministry is waiting for some kind of explanation from China that will be at minimum expected from the Diet and from Tokyo. It is a relatively serious concern that a Chinese military plane in particular entered Japan's airspace without any previous warning, any notice, or any request for permission. So it is something that Tokyo is taking very seriously, and there will be expectations of analysis by the Defense Ministry and perhaps some kind of explanation or reaction from Beijing.
All right, Chris, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. And U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will visit China on Tuesday in a new bid to manage tensions months before the U.S. elections. Officials said the 3-day visit aims to focus on investment, strengthening alliances, and taking the common step on technology and national security. China-U.S. relations have been witnessing turbulent times in recent years. Biden in May announced a quadrupling of tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles to 100%, doubling of duties on semiconductors and solar cells to 50%, and new 25% tariffs on lithium-ion batteries and other strategic goods, including steel, to shield firms from excess Chinese productions. Our correspondent Laura Westbrook tells us more if this visit by Sullivan will help in a dialogue and prevent the competition from escalating into a conflict.
This is the latest high-level visit that's aimed at diffusing those tensions. The U.S. says that this visit is all about maintaining the channels of communication as they seek to manage this incredibly important relationship responsibly. They're expected to discuss areas of cooperation, for example, when it comes to fentanyl, but also areas where they are locked in disputes. For example, the future of Taiwan. China claims Taiwan as its own, and it says that this is very much a red line that it does not want to see crossed. They're also expected to discuss military-to-military communication, as well as the future of artificial intelligence and improving cooperation around that issue. Also on the table is a possible discussions about a final meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two last spoke on the phone in spring and met in November in California last year.
Meanwhile, Canada, following the lead of the United States, will impose a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicle imports. The country also plans to impose a 25% duty on Chinese steel and aluminium. The duties apply to all EVs shipped from China, which would include those made by Tesla. Canada's duties on Chinese electric vehicles are due to come into effect on 1st October, while those on steel and aluminium will be implemented from 15th of October. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that Ottawa will continue to work with the US and other allies to ensure that customers around the world are not unfairly penalized by non-market practices of countries such as China. The European Union this month imposed tariffs of up to 36.3% on imports of Chinese-made electric vehicles.
We will be introducing a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. We are transforming Canada's automotive sector to be a global leader in building the vehicles of tomorrow. But actors like China have chosen to give themselves an unfair advantage in the global marketplace, compromising the security of our critical industries and displacing dedicated Canadian autos and metalwork.
The French president has ruled out the New Popular Front forming a government, despite the leftist alliance winning the greatest number of seats in the snap election in July. Emmanuel Macron says that a new round of consultations with the party leaders to try to agree on a possible coalition will start on Tuesday. TD India correspondent Ross Cullen gets us more from Paris.
Well, Monday was the second day of consultations between the French president and French party leaders. He had already met government representatives and also representatives from the leftist opposition and centrist, centre-right opposition on Friday. Today was the turn of Mr Macron coming face-to-face with the far-right opposition, with party leader Jordan Bardella, National Rally heavyweight Marine Le Pen and also Eric Ciotti. Now, he was the leader of the centre-right Conservatives, but he, in a surprise move just on the eve of the election, said that he was going to form an electoral alliance with the far right, to the dismay of many of his centre-right Conservatives. And he was also there on Monday at the Elysee Palace, and he said he believes that a second round of negotiations will be needed before France can inch towards the possibility of forming a government. He and the far-right National Rally leaders who were in the Elysee Palace on Monday did say that if Mr Macron wants to appoint a government from the left, governments are potentially composed mostly of representatives from the New Popular Front, then that government will be subjected to a motion of censure, a no confidence confidence vote as soon as it gets going in October. The National Rally saying they would absolutely not stand for having a government from the left wing. Although they came third overall in the election, in the snap election on the 7th of July, the National Rally do have the biggest number of MPs just alone as a single party. So their party leader Jordan Bardella and their heavyweight Marine Le Pen really feel that they do have a lot to gain from this. They have a lot of standing and they need to be listened to by the French President Emmanuel Macron. But so far, as of Monday, after 2 full days of discussions, we do not yet have a Prime Minister confirmed to take over the reins from Gabriel Attal, who is continuing as Premier in a caretaker role only. And we do not also have the formation of a government anytime soon, but Emmanuel Macron has been expected to try to name a new Prime Minister before the end of this week. Ross Cullen in Paris reporting for DD India.
France is not just in news for its political uncertainties, but also for the arrest of Telegram CEO Pavel Durov in a cybercriminality investigation. Paris prosecutor in a statement on Monday said the probe concerns crimes related to illicit transactions, child pornography, fraud, and the refusal to communicate information to the authorities. Meanwhile, French authorities have extended the detention of Telegram CEO. An investigating magistrate ordered that Durov can be held for questioning for up to 96 hours, after which he must be charged or released from custody. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Monday that the French government was not involved in the arrest of the Telegram founder. Macron said that the arrest of Telegram's president on French territory took place as part of an ongoing judicial investigation. This is in no way a political decision, he said. The World Health Organization has launched a global strategic preparedness and response plan to stop human-to-human transmission of Mpox. The $135 million plan will focus on disease research, surveillance, prevention and response strategies, and also ramp up diagnostic testing. This comes after African leaders urged for international support and equitable access to Mpox vaccines. Michael Balikit sends us this report from Kampala.
The 6-month plan by WHO will be coordinated at global, regional and national levels. The operation will focus on controlling acute outbreaks of human-to-human transmission. African countries are the hardest hit, yet more than 70 countries outside the continent already have stockpiles of Mpox vaccines. The first shipment of vaccines to Africa is expected this week. The shots will be used to address the new Mpox strain to prevent the further spread of the virus. The new variant has claimed more than 500 lives in the DR Congo, the epicenter of the disease. Medical experts and scientists have warned of possible serious consequences that could arise if Africa is left out from receiving the life-saving vaccinations. The Mpox outbreak has been declared a public health emergency of international concern. The new WHO response plan will include the participation of local communities in prevention and control measures. Michael Baleke in Kampala for DD India.
Elon Musk's space exploration company, SpaceX, is set to embark on a groundbreaking mission on Tuesday that will make history with the first privately managed spacewalk. The mission, which will last 6 days, represents a significant leap in the privatization of space exploration. The Polaris Dawn mission will see a crew of 4 SpaceX astronauts led by billionaire entrepreneur Jad Isaacman venture into Earth's orbit aboard a modified Crew Dragon capsule. The Polaris Dawn mission will orbit Earth in an elliptical path, coming as close as 190 kilometers and reaching as far as 1,400 kilometers from the planet's surface. This trajectory will take the crew farther from Earth than any human has been since the Apollo moon missions ended in 1972. A quick break ahead, but after the break, today marks the last day to file nominations for Jammu and Kashmir Assembly elections for 24 constituencies going to polls in the first phase. India strongly rejects rumours that flooding in Bangladesh was caused by uncontrolled opening of gates of the Farakka barrage. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with US President Joe Biden, reiterates the path of dialogue and diplomacy for solution to Ukraine conflict. Both stress on ensuring safety of Hindus in Bangladesh. Ukraine mulls response as it faces acute electricity and water supply outages after most massive Russian attack. US, UK, NATO termed the attack as irresponsible and potentially dangerous. And in India, incessant heavy rains wreak havoc in Gujarat. All schools closed, hundreds relocated to safer areas as forecast of heavy rains in the next few days adds to the misery. India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will today hold bilateral meeting with Brazilian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mauro Vieira, in New Delhi. The leaders will discuss how the two nations, as part of the Troika, can take forward the key G20 outcomes from India's G20 presidency last year. Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Brazilian counterpart will also co-chair the 9th India-Brazil Joint Commission meeting in New Delhi. Brazil has assumed the presidency of the G20 until November this year. The G20 Troika during the Brazilian G20 presidency in 2024 will comprise of India, Brazil and South Africa. Brazil will host the G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro on November 18th and 19th. Let's get you updates on the assembly polls in India's Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Today is the last date for the filing of nominations for the first phase. 24 assembly constituencies will go to polls in the first phase on September 18th. Congress party late on Monday released a list of 9 candidates for the on-swing Jammu and Kashmir assembly polls. India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party released a list of 15 candidates on Monday. The list comprises of names of candidates for the first phase of polling scheduled to be held on September 18th. Elections in the region will be held in 3 phases on 18th September, 25th September and 1st of October. The results will be announced on October 4th. This is the first time elections will be held in the valley after the revocation of Article 370 in 2019. All right, for more on this, we have Shabir Dar joining us from Srinagar. Shabir, good morning. Now, we know the assembly elections will be the first to be held in Jammu and Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019. The elections will be held in 3 phases and the last date of the nominations is today. Let us get more from you. Who all are expected to file? Who are the star contenders that have been put forth by the respective parties in their lists?
Yeah, the last date for the nomination for the first phase, which is happening on 18th of September, is today. And we're already seeing that the political parties, with the BJP, the Regional National Conference and the Congress Party, they are all putting up the huge efforts to ensure that they will perform better in these elections. As we already know that the elections are happening after a gap of decade, because the last assembly elections happened in 2014, and since 2018 there is no elected government in place in Jammu and Kashmir. And we know that in 2019 the special status of the Jammu and Kashmir was scrapped, and the Jammu and Kashmir was downgraded into a union territory. And this is the first assembly election of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is happening after the gap of 10 years, as I already said. So the huge enthusiasm both in the people and the political parties, because we saw that the Congress and the National Conference have entered into a triple alliance. Yesterday they inked the deal, and both the parties issued the list of the candidates for the first phase. Also the BJP also did it. So there are many big bigs who are in the fray this time, because the former president of the Congress, JNK president of the Congress, is also contesting. Mr. Hassan Masoodi, who was the parliamentarian from Anantnag constituency in the last parliament, is also contesting from Pampo. So also BJP has also fielded candidates in all the 24 constituencies, particularly in Kashmir, where most of the candidates for BJP in Kashmir are the Muslim faces, local Muslim faces. So definitely a huge, fight between National Conference and Congress and the BJP, because as we see that in last 5 years, BJP were able, to do a lot of development in Jammu and Kashmir through the LG administration, and a lot of things have happened because Kashmir has changed over the years. The Kashmir, where once upon a time some political forces were going against the election process, democratic process. All these voices, all these forces are now silent. So it is a direct contest, and people are showing a lot of enthusiasm in the electoral process, as was witnessed in the recently held parliamentary elections, where people enthusiastically participated in the assembly.
All right, Shabir, so it will be a direct contest. Also, you tell us that the elections will be held after 10 years in Jammu and Kashmir. Help us understand, what is it on the minds of the voters when they turn out to vote? What are the prominent issues that are likely to be at the center of the elections this time around?
We see the youth are the main stakeholders of this election. As we see in the parliament elections, youth participated hugely in the elections, and their concern is unemployment. They want jobs. The development has happened in Kashmir in the last 5 years. The people want that momentum should continue, and a lot of development should happen. And Kashmir is a tourist state, so infrastructure to augment the tourist infrastructure should be augmented, and roads, healthcare, and basic issues which concerns the common man, including the jobs, the healthcare, the roads, and other development issues are the main concern of the people. But youth will definitely like to have some, concrete plan for the employment. That's why all political parties in their manifestos had, thrusted on creation of jobs and economic opportunities for the youth. So these are pressing issues: tourism, development, employment, and development. These are the main issues which the voters will like the parties to come forward with the plan.
Yes.
They would definitely like to cast their votes for those parties who will offer solutions to these issues.
All right, Shabir, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining in with those details. And up next, we get you weather updates from across the country. We know weather conditions are swinging from heat waves leading to forest fires to excessive rainfall leading to floods and landslides. We take a look at some of the weather updates from not only just India, but across the globe. First, we'll talk of India. Western Indian city of Gujarat continues to witness heavy rainfall, leaving the state authority to shut down all primary schools for Tuesday. The Met Department on Monday predicted that Gujarat would experience heavy to extremely heavy rains over the next 2 to 3 days. The state has been witnessing heavy rainfall over the past 2 days, leading to parts of Gujarat being inundated and displacing hundreds of residents to safer locations. State's Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel has urged for the safe evacuation of people from low-lying areas and said that the first priority should be to prevent the loss of life and livestock. NDRF and SDRF have been pressed into service for life and relief and rescue operations. All right, Parth Pandya is joining us from Ahmedabad to get us more. Parth, good morning. Now, we've told our viewers about the situation which Gujarat currently faces, and behind you also I see a waterlogged road. Help us understand what has been the weather today. How has the day begun?
Yes, definitely. Good morning. It is very tough morning in the Gujarat right now because the depression is causing a great amount of rain in all over the Gujarat. Today, IMD is issuing a red alert like situation for all over Gujarat except some few pockets of the northern Gujarat region. If we talk specifically about figures of last 24 hours, it is completely raining all over Gujarat, especially the southern Gujarat region. It was about 10 to 12 inches. In Saurashtra, it was about 10 to 11 inches. And right now, where I'm standing, it is central Gujarat region. It is Ahmedabad. It is so much windy here. It is very tough for me to hold this camera also. As you can see behind me, all the commuters, all the vehicles are totally in the drone region or in the drone roads. All the roads has been urban flooded right now. As we can see, tough situation is in the Gujarat. Today, it is the red alert situation has been focused on the southern Gujarat region, Saurashtra region, and Vadodara especially, because Vadodara yesterday received almost 10 to 12 inches of rain. But yes, it is all over. The rain situation is there in the Gujarat, and today the school has been shut. We don't know about tomorrow, but around 2 p.m. the administration will hold a press conference. In yesterday's press conference, the administration told that it is 13 NDRF team has been placed in all over Gujarat and 22 SDRF team has been placed. More than 1,500 people has been displaced from the drone-like situation because flooding was there in the Navsari and Valsad. More than 1,500 people rescued. In Morbi yesterday, 10 people were drowned in water of the river Puna. All of the people have been saved recently, but today it is very tough situation for all over Gujarat, and because it is windy so much right now, almost 55 to 60 kilometer per hour speed has been recorded, and today IMD issued a special care, a special eye is there on the Gujarat. Yes.
All right, Parth, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Tripura, where flood situation has eased with flood water subsiding now. The number of relief camps have also come down to 471. At present, there are 70,000 people taking shelter in these relief camps. The state government has requested the central government to send an advanced interministerial central team to the state for the on-the-spot assessment of damage caused due to recent floods. Meanwhile, the death toll from devastating floods in Bangladesh has risen to 23, with around 1.24 million families stranded across 11 districts. The Met Department said that flood conditions could persist if the monsoon rains continued, as water levels were receding very slowly. Army, Air Force, Navy and the South Asian countries' border guard are assisting in rescue and relief operations. India has refuted rumours and efforts to create misunderstanding in Bangladesh that flooding was caused by uncontrolled opening of gates of the Farakka barrage. India suggested such efforts must be countered with facts. On Monday, India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that fake videos, rumours and fear-mongering is being done to create misunderstanding between India and Bangladesh. He said that all data related to water is shared with the concerned Joint River Commission officials in Bangladesh on a regular and timely basis, and has been done this time as well. He refuted the baseless rumours that gates of Farakka barrage were opened suddenly. He further clarified that Farakka is only a barrage and not a dam. No water can be stored in face of heavy rains in the Indian side. The changing weather conditions are also leading to rising of sea levels at an accelerating rate, especially in the far more vulnerable Pacific Island nations. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued yet another climate SOS to the world. This time, he said that those initials stand for Save Our Seas. The UN chief was addressing the Pacific Islands Forum being held in Tonga.
Must look to the Pacific and listen to science. This is a crazy situation. Rising seas are a crisis entirely of humanity's making. A crisis that will soon swell to an almost unimaginable scale with no lifeboat to take us back to safety. But if we save the Pacific, we also save ourselves. The world must act and enter the SOS before it's too late.
Climate change and security are dominating discussions at the week-long annual leaders meeting, where the 18 members of the Pacific Islands Forum span atoll nations threatened by sea level rise, such as host Tonga and one of the world's biggest exporters of coal, Australia. The United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization on Monday issued reports on worsening sea level rise, turbocharged by a warming earth and melting ice sheets and glaciers. They highlighted how the southwestern Pacific is not only hurt by the rising oceans, but by other climate change effects of ocean acidification and also marine heat waves. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India now. The first meeting of the National Task Force formed by the Supreme Court to make recommendations for safety, security and working conditions of medical professionals will be held on Tuesday. The Apex Court had directed the task force to submit its interim report within 3 weeks and the final report within 2 months. This comes after nationwide protests regarding the rape and murder of a doctor at the RG Kar Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata. Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's judicial custody will end on Tuesday in the CBI case concerning the excise policy. The Delhi court will also review a supplementary charge sheet on Tuesday filed by CBI against Kejriwal. The Chief Minister was first arrested by the Enforcement Directorate on March 21st for a money laundering case connected to the Delhi excise policy scam. The Supreme Court will hear a bail plea by BRS leader K. Kavitha on Tuesday in a money laundering case linked to the alleged Delhi excise policy scam. The Apex Court has sought responses from ED and CBI on Kavitha's plea, challenging a July 1st Delhi High Court order denying her bail in the two cases. Dahi Handi festival is being organized in Maharashtra on Tuesday for the occasion of Sri Krishna Janmashtami. Devotees throng temples to celebrate the birth of Lord Krishna. As one of the city's most patronized festivals, more than 11,000 police personnel have been deployed. A 4K restored version of Raj Kapoor's 1951 classic Awara will be screened at the 49th Toronto International Film Festival on September 13th. The black and white classic will have its world premiere at the prestigious gala under the TIFF Classics section to celebrate the filmmaker's 100th birth anniversary. Awara, also produced and directed by Raj Kapoor, was restored by the National Film Archive of India. The classic is one of the several iconic Raj Kapoor films being restored to honour his centenary in December this year. A quick break ahead, but after the break we get you all the action from US Open as Djokovic, Sabalenka began campaigns with straight set wins. David Beckham pays tributes to Sven-Goran Eriksson after his passing away. And Argentine capital's taxi dancers are teaching novice dancers tango, taking them for a night out. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you updates from the roller sports now. We'll begin with the US Open. Defending champion Novak Djokovic enjoyed a comfortable win in the first round of the US Open on Monday. Djokovic, looking to become the first player to capture 25 Grand Slam titles, capped the evening session under the lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium with a 6-2, 6-2, 6-4 victory over Moldovan qualifier Radu Albert. The Serbian world number 2 had not competed since winning the Olympic gold medal in Paris and shook off the rust to cruise past Albert in his bid to become the first man to retain the New York title since Roger Federer in 2008. He also set a record for most victories by a male player at the main show court with his 78th win. Earlier, Germany's Jon Choinski fell short in an epic 5-set thriller during his US Open debut against Spain's Roberto Baena in the first round. British qualifier Choinski nearly pulled off a stunning comeback on his US Open debut, but lost to Roberto after losing steam later in the game. Choinski, ranked 276th, fought back from 2 sets down, but ultimately fell short due to unforced errors and missed break points. He expressed satisfaction with his performance despite battling illness leading up to the match. The US Open is also notable as the first major tournament since Paris 2024, and Choinski was the first British player in action on day 1 of the Flushing Meadows. In women's singles, Aryna Sabalenka opened her campaign with a 6-3, 6-3 win over qualifier Priscilla Hon. The Belarusian player fought hard for every point in a dominant performance to wrap up the opening night action at Louis Armstrong Stadium. Sabalenka, who came up short in the final a year ago and reached the semis in 2021 and 2022, fired off 27 winners to set up a meeting with Italian Luisa Bronzetti in the second round. Meanwhile, defending champion Coco Gauff kick-started her campaign by beating Varvara Gracheva comfortably in the first round. The 20-year-old American cruised to a 6-2, 6-0 victory in just 66 minutes on the Arthur Ashe Stadium, showing a return to form after recent struggles. Reflecting on her performance, Gauff said that the win against Gracheva was the best tennis I have played in a while, and I unquote. She credited a fan's comment on TikTok for helping her shift her mindset, encouraging her to enjoy the tournament without added pressure. Gauff's next challenge will be against German veteran Tatjana Maria in the second round after Maria defeated Argentine qualifier Solana Sierra for 6-2, 6-3. Following the sad passing away of former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson, the legendary footballer David Beckham paid tribute by saying that he is forever grateful to him. Beckham paid tribute to Eriksson, calling the former England manager a true gentleman and also expressing his gratitude following Eriksson's passing away at the age of 76. Eriksson, who became the first non-British England manager in 2001, named Beckham as captain shortly after his appointment. Beckham shared his message on social media alongside a video from his visit with Eriksson earlier this year and said, I quote, "I will be forever grateful for you making me your captain, but I will forever hold these last memories of this day with you and your family," and I unquote. In F1, McLaren's Lando Norris emerged as the new champion, giving fresh life to the coveted Dutch Grand Prix. Not only this, McLaren's Lando Norris also ended Max Verstappen's unbeaten home record to win his second Formula One career title. Here's a report.
McLaren's Lando Norris gives a new life to Dutch Grand Prix, ending Max Verstappen's unbeaten home record to win his second Formula One career title. Not only this, McLaren have now won a total of 3 races this season, which is his biggest haul since 2012. Max Verstappen, Red Bull's triple world champion, finished 22.896 seconds behind, with Ferrari's Charles Leclerc taking the checkered flag in 3rd place after starting 6th. Interestingly, it was also the first time since the race returned to the calendar in 2021 that Verstappen had not triumphed, and the once-dominated driver's losing streak this season now extends to 5 races. Speaking on this special moment, Lando Norris said, "It feels amazing. I wouldn't say a perfect race because of lap 1 again, but afterwards it was beautiful. The pace was very strong, the car was unbelievable. I could push and get past Max, which was the main thing, and just go from there. So quite a straightforward race. Still tough, but very enjoyable." Norris had started on pole position for the 4th time in his career, and the race was the first time he had converted the advantage into victory. The 26-year-old Verstappen, a 3-time world champion and 61-time race winner, now stands 70 points ahead of Norris. In the constructors' standings, Red Bull is 30 points in front of McLaren with 9 events left on the season. Sports Desk, DD India.
Argentine taxi dancers are helping tourists visiting Buenos Aires to navigate the complex vagaries of the tango scene. Now, the taxi dancers, who are professionals, offer private lessons and accompany novice dancers for a night out in the town. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. And for that, you can download the respective QR codes on the screens now. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.